Fresh off of a refresh, the Subaru Forester is a great SUV in a segment full of competitors that are also hard to beat. So today I'm going to go over various reasons why the Forester is still a standout in the class. If you enjoy fun, detailed car content without the fluff, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. While nothing has been officially announced, the 2023 Forester will likely receive minimal changes. Hopefully we'll see additions like wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And I'll update you on this with a super quick video whenever that car comes out. I'll link my full 2022 review below. While these are not really in a particular order, one of the most important things for me with the Forester is that it has a simple, practical interior. There are no capacitive buttons in here. You have a touchscreen that's got a pretty simple UI. Yes, it doesn't have the quickest response time or the best resolution, but I've seen quite a few senior citizens get used to these things pretty quickly. There's also actual volume and tune dials, complete physical HVAC controls. There's not even a digital gauge cluster. This could be a drawback to some people, but on top of making it easier to use, I think that will also help this age a little bit more gracefully. And that simple interior is practical too. It has a ginormous cargo area toward the top of the segment, but it also has a very wide opening, and the seats fold down reasonably flat, and you can actually fold them from the cargo area on the upper trim models. Plus, legroom and headroom are absurd in both the front and rear, which is a big payoff for that box on wheels design. And if you aren't looking to pay a big dealer markup, check out Royal on the Eastside in Bloomington, Indiana. I need to thank them for letting me drive various Foresters this year, along with holding to MSRP on all new vehicles. And the next factor that separates this from the rest is its ruggedness, especially if you have the Wilderness trim, even more so than in the Outback, and here's why. All have 8.7 inches of ground clearance, and then you can get up to 9.4 with the Wilderness trim. However, this is going to have better approach and departure angles than the Outback, making it even more usable in off-road scenarios. That Wilderness trim is also more than just a look. A lot of other SUVs, hold for the Jeep Trailhawk models, don't really back up their off-road specs with substance. But this one will add, again, the higher suspension height, revised dampening, a more aggressive final drive ratio, an additional feature baked into the X mode system, which tells the transmission to hold its lowest gear ratio possible. And X mode itself helps better divert power in low speed scenarios from side to side. There's also a better radiator fan, transfer case reinforcement, and now an external oil cooler for the transmission. All of which might be the reason the Wilderness tows 3,000 pounds compared to 1,500 in the others. And since this is a Subaru, it comes with full-time all-wheel drive that can divert more than 50% to the rear, a big advantage over some of its other competitors. And seeing what this thing can do, especially with the dual mode X mode, is actually pretty impressive. When you get on the inside, the materials in there, while they're not as luxurious or premium as something like in the Outback or in the Mazdas even, I think that the materials themselves do feel more rugged. And really, the whole car does. Yes, that means that plastic use is a little high, but it's easy to clean. Most rest points still have soft touch materials. And there's good hip room for large winter clothing and thick posteriors. Compared to the Outback, this may be more friendly to those with wide hips, but it is more noisy and doesn't have that same car-like driving position. Which leads me to the next big pro here. That's the visibility. Because you have a really low belt line and that different driving position, you feel like you're sitting more on top of the vehicle, which gives you a better look around the car and reminds me of small crossovers from the 2000s in a good way, something pretty exclusive to the Forester at this size. And that's really the only fun aspect to driving this. Speaking of the on-road experience, my next reason is that this is very comfortable, yet still quite capable. While it's not as soft and cushy as the Subaru Outback, and the seats aren't as comfortable, I will say that it feels a little bit more reactive. If you want a small SUV, or really any SUV that's fun, and you don't want to spend premium car money, I'm just going to direct you towards Mazda if you didn't already know. But really, you can take this on the harshest of roads with really windy corners, and the thing is composed, making it a very relaxing experience. It's hard to fault the Forester's road manners, and the flat orientation of the engine helps give this a low center of gravity too, so body roll is maintained well. But the powertrain overall aggressively fits the phrase just enough. All Foresters get a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated direct injected Boxer 4. That makes 182 horsepower, 176 pound-feet of torque, and uses a CVT to put the power to the ground. The Forester will do what you ask of it. It's not slow to a hazardous degree, but the engine drone under acceleration will remind you she isn't too happy. If you want a more spirited Forester, the Wilderness model's more aggressive final drive ratio does perk it up a little at the cost of highway gas mileage. I really wish that Subaru still offered a turbocharged engine in the Forester like they do with the Outback. I won't lie to you, I think a vast majority of people shopping in this segment will be more than happy with the 2.5 liter, and it gets really good gas mileage on top of that. But these are really popular in the mountains, so having a turbo engine there would be kind of a nice option at the very least. Or if you just want to smoke unsuspecting V6 Dodge Chargers like you can with the Outback XT, which is a valid reason too. Still, I think the engine is a main contributor to this next reason to buy it, and my last main one, running cost. So on top of great gas mileage, 29 miles to the gallon combined, again, with all-wheel drive, you have some pretty good reliability. Yes, I know, and I get this in each Subaru video, these did not have great history. You had oil consumption issues lasting up until around 2015, and you had head gasket issues, pre-2010, 2009. But to combat those issues, Subaru changed head gasket material. They changed from a open deck to a semi-closed deck, which greatly reduced the reports of head gasket failures, and oil consumption was related to the piston rings, which is something that a lot of other brands struggled with, and something that Subaru, including most of those other brands, have fixed since. And the biggest way to avoid future issues with the oil rings is to change your oil on time. Overall, the engine hasn't been the source of any common problems since 2015. There were some transmission failures with Subaru's first gen of Lineartronic CVTs, but that wasn't as common of a problem and tapered off at the end of the last gen. A bigger problem back then was unintended acceleration. The issues affecting the Forester lately are glitchy infotainment systems, batteries draining, and some windshields cracking easily. As usual, time is going to have to tell, but Subaru has been a decently reliable brand outside of those particular problems, and if you're not changing spark plugs, everything's really easy to get to if you're a DIY person. And on top of that, you'll have resale values that are extremely strong for the class, making this one of the more affordable cars to own in the segment. I'd trust this, but if predicted reliability is what you're concerned most with, I'd steer you toward a CX-5 or non-hybrid RAV4. Overall, unless it's the Forester Wilderness, which I think is pretty special, this Subi SUV is not something that's going to get your heart going. However, its more simple approach to an SUV that's both packed full of features and very capable on-road and off-road makes it something that I think is very easy to recommend. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like and help me with my ongoing battle against the YouTube algorithm. If you want to see more, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. I'll catch you in the next one.